A couple episodes back, I mentioned Nintendo Power Magazine, and it got me thinking how I miss having a magazine I can read about my video game fandom. With Nintendo Power, we had tips, we had codes, we had previews, but there's not a lot of codes these days. There's not a lot of tips you can give someone. But I'm looking for opinions, previews, reviews, someone who can convince me the game's worth buying. So step in Nintendo Force Magazine. I have been a huge fan of this so far. It's not been very long. Hi, I'm Dayglow80, and today we're going to look at Nintendo Force Magazine. See where it came from, how it was inspired, and what kind of impact does it have on the video game fans today. The massive Crocmire cannot be destroyed by missiles or beams. You must use your firepower to push it back and into the lava. The Crocmire opens its mouth, hit it with missiles, and your powered up beam. That would have been helpful 25 years ago, but it's a great tip now. Nintendo Power Magazine first published in a July-August issue of 1988. This marked about 2 years or so after the North American full launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Shortly after the console's launch, a game counselor hotline was set up and its number was inserted into all game cartridge packaging, where kids could call in to find out about how to play the game, get some tips, eventually get information on upcoming games to be released. In 1987, the Nintendo Fun Club was created in response to the popularity of the hotline. Free issues were sent to customers and members. In 1988, it was then discontinued, and Nintendo created a subscription-based magazine, later called Nintendo Power. Its first issue highlighted the long-awaited, highly anticipated release of the Super Mario Bros. 2 video game. Sadly, in August of 2012, Nintendo Power announced the end of publication, and in December later that year, its final issue was released. Nintendo Power provided game news and strategy tips. It featured artists and original comic strips that fan art was created. Previews and highlights were the anticipation of every kid who was playing a Nintendo Entertainment System, or a Super NES, or whatever console showed up in the 25-year reign of the magazine. So what was the impact of Nintendo Power on the video game fandom? Well, when Nintendo Power announced that they were leaving, one group of fans decided that couldn't happen. And by January 2013, a replacement issue had started. Enter Nintendo Force. In 2014 and 2015, Nintendo Force found sponsorship and funding through Kickstarter. In 2016, they moved on to Patreon to continue the rest of their legacy, providing all of their fans monthly subscriptions, both digital and print. Nintendo Force continues the community that was started with Nintendo Power through video game news, previews, reviews, first views, guest views, and fan art and comic art. Nintendo Force Magazine grabbed my attention when I saw a tagline that said, "NF isn't just a magazine. It's an adult life morale boost." Let's take a look at some of the articles I've got to enjoy in some of the past issues of Nintendo Force. The rise of my Legend of Zelda fandom started with Twilight Princess. But when I heard that Skyward Sword was announced, I was getting myself ready for motion-controlled madness. In its broader scope, Skyward Sword was a middle-of-the-road kind of game for the series. With plenty of critics and fans alike, what better way to relive the confusion and trauma of all the things we loved and hated about that game than to collect them all and plop them in issue 53. In this feature article, the Nintendo Force team dives into some of the most relatable hits and misses of Skyward Sword's original Wii release, all in anticipation for that year's Switch release of Skyward Sword HD. Reading this 8-page feature felt less like a group of opinions in a magazine, and it felt more like a panel discussion at a convention. It's easy to identify with all the pros and cons the team expresses, and I think that's what lets this magazine feel so down to earth. Team contributions like this are not foreign to Nintendo Force's feature section. Although sometimes they may be written by a single individual, at times they present with a more communal tone. In the recent issue number 64, the Nintendo N64 console legacy was laid out as a roundtable discussion amongst all of Nintendo Force's contributors. As a fan of all things video game and Nintendo, I would buy tickets to that discussion if I could. But instead, I think I'll take mine with a hammock. Or on the john. One thing I've never seen in a magazine is a second opinion article. Nintendo Force usually sets aside a little space each issue to provide a second opinion from contributors on games that others have reviewed in the past. One of the best things about video games is that we all have different playstyles and preferences. Although two or more people may come together on one game, they may come together at different degrees. One of my favorite second opinion articles is from the July and August 2021 issue again. Lucas provides a new take on Hades for the Switch. I love Hades, I could play that game style for hours. In Chris's case, from issue number 50, he seemed to think that the game was suitable for an 8 out of 10, although it was, as Lucas quoted him saying, a great way to spend a weekend. The editor-in-chief here expresses a detailed appreciation for Supergiant's game's artistry, one that I can get behind. He whirls enthusiasm and passion for Hades, from its surprising replayability to the astounding voice acting. This is another way Nintendo Force magazine really provides content from a fan's perspective. By reading an opinion and responding by standing up and saying, "Hold my controller." Another tradition that Nintendo Force magazine carries on from its Nintendo Power influence is the continued support of independent artists. Thor Thorvaldsson writes and illustrates an adorable ongoing series titled Dr. Chozo and Samus Chan. It's a delightful pop-in to see what Samus Chan will get up to next. Also, Jonathan Holmes makes a regular appearance touching on each issue's feature through the misadventures of non-specific action figure. These comics are cute additions to the innocence and simplicity I look forward to when reading through these pages. They remind me to keep having fun with whatever it is I do. One of the things I love about being a childless adult is the ability to buy myself toys. You're not gonna walk in on me playing with dolls anytime soon.
Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
But as a middle-aged man, I do have my nostalgia. Brett Martin is the Nintendo Force team's collectible expert, and I like to check out his Collector's Corner each issue to see what's new in the line of Amiibo, as well as collectibles coming soon from, manufacturers like First for Figures, Jack Toys, and Lego. Any fandom across the world has one thing in common, above all things: fan art. Nintendo Force magazine keeps this tradition going with a section each issue titled Community. Here, the inventive and super creative are highlighted to show off their products and projects in honor of the beloved games we all grew up with. Issue number 64 has a really neat set of 3 quick articles. One looks at a fan's painstaking project to upscale Mario Kart 64 to high definition. Lucas documents well the effort and masterful result of such an undertaking. Next, there's a small overview of another fan's ongoing efforts to bring the long-rumored and never-realized Metroid 64 game into fruition. It's interesting to look at all the possible perspectives a journalist can dive into with stories like this, into a world most of us have absolutely no connection to. Finally, Rebecca introduces us to a fan who hand makes instruction manuals for your favorite Switch games and cases. This sounds right up my alley, especially if my alley is a modest house with a room full of money. Oh, if I could. Well, this little Timbit is a must-read for sure. All I can do is say thank you, Rebecca, and keep your eyes peeled for more like this. Conveniently, the 64th issue of Nintendo Force magazine focused on the legacy of the Nintendo 64 console. It coincided really well with the major release of some bigger titles earlier this year. Pokemon Stadium, we got Wave Race, we got Pilot Wings. Nintendo Force is always up to date on the hottest trends that are happening in the business, whether it's toys from Jack, the opening of Super Nintendo World in Japan, Super Mario Bros. Movie. With how much Nintendo has going in the future, I don't think this magazine is going to be short of much to write about. But the one thing that I haven't shown you enough, the one thing that grabs everyone's attention as soon as they hear about this magazine, provided that they haven't, is that with each physical issue, get a poster. A two-sided poster. As you can see, I've gotten a couple already and decided to display them. No better way to celebrate the Ocarina of Time and the game that I never finished than to put it up in a frame from a poster. So what else can you say about a magazine? I mean, the magazine. It did everything that it was set out to do, and it continues to do it year after year for the past 10 years. Nintendo Force magazine is a reasonable subscription, an excellent expression of journalism and art, and an amazing community of fandom to get together and discuss everything that we do here. I highly recommend subscribing to Nintendo Force magazine if you are a Nintendo fan and you're looking for something beyond. Maybe you want to teach your kid how to read. The opinions, the rating systems, the suggestions, they're all helpful and they help me belong to a larger community. I want to thank Nintendo Force magazine for everything that they do. I love the publication and I can't wait for each issue. Lucas, Tony, Rebecca, and the rest of the team, keep doing what you guys are doing, and I'm in for it 100%. You've created a magazine that can live right next to my toilet so much easier. Well, I hope you liked today's video. Like, subscribe, follow, do all those things as usual. Hit the bell notification if you want to hear more. And as always, catch you on the next video, eh? From its surprising replayability. Hey. Posterity and for bloopers, of course.